Alright, for this video, we're going to be replacing the rotor on a MantisX Plus. And some of the tools we're going to need are 2.5mm Allen wrench, 5mm Allen wrench, 6mm Allen wrench, as well as a 4mm Allen wrench. First, start by removing the right side of the fender. So there are two screws holding the right side of the fender. Go ahead and remove those. And this is to allow a little bit of gap for the rear swing arm that is on the right side, so that we can create enough gap to make the motor installation easy. If the swing arm isn't loosened, it'll make it very, very difficult to remove and install the rear motor. So we will start by loosening the rear swing arm. It might take a lot of force, but just gotta be patient. You don't have to remove the rear swing arm axle all the way. We just need to create enough gap so that we can gently push it out. You can use a crescent wrench to loosen the motor screws, but for demonstration purposes, we're going to be using a power tool. So go ahead and just back out these screws, like so, doing it on either side. And what this allows us to do is to gently back out the right side of the swing arm, and that'll create a bigger spacing so that we can easily install the motor and remove the motor in reverse order. Next step, we're gonna clear off all these tools on the table. Go ahead and remove the bolts on either side of. So go ahead and remove the bolts on the motor axle, set those aside, gently pull out the motor, and it's important to have a platform underneath so that it can be captured, so we don't run into a situation where the motor drops. In our case, the platform underneath is just not low enough. Okay, so that seems to be just the right distance. Next thing is to make sure that we remove the motor wire locking pin. So that is holding these motor wires. So go ahead and remove those. Yeah, and there's another clip that holds the motor. Once the motor clip is removed, next thing is to cut the zip tie that's holding the motor wire. Okay, once the motor is removed, go ahead and use a 3mm Allen key to remove the side panel. And it's easy to pry it open by using a flathead screwdriver to just create enough gap. And then this piece will just come off. But make sure it just hangs there, because there is a light assembly, LED light assembly here. We want to make sure that doesn't fall. We'll leave that over here. And the next thing we need to do is to remove the rear motor connector. And start by removing the battery. And if you haven't seen the battery removal video. Go ahead and watch those. So put the battery aside. Once the light assembly the guide is off and the motor is positioned, go ahead and use a 3mm Allen wrench to remove the front side panel. And the goal here is to access the motor connectors so that we can disconnect them to remove the rotor. Yeah, so there are 2 screws holding. So once you have removed both of these, this will pop out and this exposes. Go ahead and set that aside. And you'll notice that these bundles of wires here, if you pull them out, you're going to see 3 motor connections, like so. Go ahead and remove those, like that. Yeah. And they are color coded. So to reverse this process, you just have to follow the color. Remove the Hall sensor feedback, and these are the motor connections. And simply pull out this wire. And at this point, whatever platform you're using to set the motor, you can simply pull it to a convenient position. Use a 4mm Allen wrench to remove the 6 rotor screws, and they should have blue Loctite applied. So coming off would require a little bit of snapping force, as you can hear. You want to hear that to ensure that this was properly locked, and do not run a risk of screws self-backing out. So remove all of those screws. Yeah. Once the last screw is out, go ahead and lift the motor harness, and remove the rotor. Pause. Okay. Then grab your replacement rotor, and it's advised to wear gloves because you do not want human oil getting around where the brake pads will contact. And for this video, since it's the demo unit for repair purposes, I'll just use my bare hands. Go ahead and feed in your rotor, just like that. Line up the rotor, and use the screws that have the blue Loctite and insert those in. We've already pre-applied the Loctite here. And as you're screwing in the rotor, make sure that none of the screws are tight. We just want to make sure that they are in position before we tighten them. So just set them in place without tightening them. Yeah, just like that. And when all the screws are in place, tighten them with a moderate force, going in opposite direction to create a balanced tension. Just like that. All right. Next, position the motor just below the rear axle. And the next thing is to feed the motor wires through the left side of the chassis guide. And you can easily do this by just simply pushing the wires in and simply connect the three-phase motor wires, and these are color coded. So make sure blue connects to blue, yellow connects to yellow, and green connects to green. And then your Hall sensor connector. That is your 5-pin connection here. And yeah, go ahead and once the connection is secure, go ahead and pull this out such that it is snug. And then we can place the front side panel back onto the unit, and you can again use a 3mm Allen wrench, to tighten. Just like that. And then grab your light guide along with the rear side panel that we have removed. Install that back on. Make sure you group all of the wires so that none of them are overlapping. Yeah, just like that. And again, use a 3mm Allen wrench to secure the side panel. So, just like that. Yeah. And make sure the light guide is installed back in. And this is just a pressure fit. So this just needs to be inside a groove where, start from the front side of the groove and this snaps in, and then you can work your way towards the back side. Now it's completely flush. Yeah, and then secure the bottom screw on the rear side panel. Okay, once that's done, go ahead and install the battery pack. We had removed it so that we can create more space for the wires to move around when we were pulling out the motor wire. So position them. Connect the charge port, that's the smaller yellow connector, and then the two discharge ports. Those are the bigger yellow connector. These are XT60. Install your communication box in the spacing between the motor controller and the battery. Slide in your LED driver unit on one side, and then gently tuck in all of the wires so that they're nice and flush, such that when we install the deck, now the wires will be pinched. Now moving back to the motor, since we have replaced the rotor, so we can simply reverse the process, and for this we will be using an adjustable stool here. So we're going to lower it a little bit to create a little bit of room so that we can install the motor back onto the platform. So as you remember, this cable strap we had removed, and that was holding this cable right on the left side of the swing arm, and we want to make sure that that is secure. Yeah, so go ahead and feed the harness strap like that. And use a 3mm Allen wrench to secure the cable strap. Just like that. And then there are 2 cable locking slides on the inner side of the left swing arm, and you can just clip those in so that there's no movement of the wire. Next step is I'm going to raise up the platform just a tad bit to install the motor. And to do this, make sure that we're installing it evenly. And since we have loosened the right side of the swing arm, this should be very easy to install. Yeah, so it'll go in like this very easily. And then just to secure this point, I'm going to raise up the table just a little bit so that it's holding the motor in place. Next thing is to install the motor axle locking washer, and these are the washers that have a slight bend that fits into the groove so that it fixes the motor position in the correct position. Yeah. Go ahead and use a crescent wrench to tighten the axle bolts, and in my case it'll be a power tool. And it's important to note if there is an extra extrusion of the motor wire, that just means that we have extended the motor wire too much through the side panel. So go ahead and just pull this out, and it'll automatically adjust. And once that's in place, you can simply feed this in back into the axle wire, just like that. Okay, great. And once that's done, a couple of final steps is we will grab the 6mm wrench to tighten the axle swing arm bolts, because we had originally loosened them to create more gap so that we can remove the motor very easily. So I will tighten it very tight. And the final step is grabbing the 2.5mm to secure the rear fender. Just like that. And we had loosened just the right side of the fender. There are 2 screws that we loosened so that we can create a small gap for the motor to dismount and then be reinstalled. Okay. And once that's done, go ahead and install the deck with the waterproof seal. And that concludes the rear rotor replacement.